I'm joined now by Iranian foreign affairs analyst Kaveh Afrasiabi. He's the co-author of Iran Nuclear Accord and the Remaking of the Middle East. Kaveh, I want to begin by getting your reaction to President Donald Trump's speech. Much of it was really targeted at Iran.
Well, I thought it was a very tough ideological speech that was perhaps scripted by John Bolton, this hawkish bomb Iran hawk. The speech, was somewhat surprising to me because I had maybe naively, optimistically expecting, a bit of flexibility and mood for compromise on Trump's part. And there was none of that. Instead, we saw this demonization of Iran, Trump calling for Iran's isolation and promising more and tougher sanctions on the way, etc., etc. And I really don't think that he won himself too many converts, because we heard, for example, from the French President Macron criticizing Trump's Iran policy, Trump's attack on multilateralism, and warning that Trump's Iran policy could lead to war. And, this is no laughing matter, no matter how much Mr. Trump managed to make himself the laughing stock at the beginning of his speech today. So, well, there's very, serious issues with the U.S.'s policy that many world leaders have trouble with. And we saw just yesterday, last night, the other signatories to the Iran nuclear deal came up with a statement.
Hold on one second. You're jumping ahead here. Let me, because I want to get to what you were talking about in just a moment. But I also want to talk about the process, if you will, that these two countries, President Trump and President Rouhani, after what we heard from both of those leaders, what are the chances that any kind of meeting will happen this year?
Meeting between the two leaders?
Yes.
Well, I am very skeptical at this point. We heard from President Rouhani saying that, when you attack us so much and, all these punitive sanctions, etc., how do you expect us to sit down face to face? There has to be some preparatory grounds that will lay the preconditions for a dialogue between the two nations, which is unfortunately absent right now. And, President Trump is devoting tomorrow's UN Security Council session presided by the U.S. to Iran and, alleged Iran's violation of international law.
So are we going to hear the same from President Trump tomorrow when he chairs this meeting of UN Security Council?
I would imagine pretty much so, because, Iran feels aggrieved and feels that the U.S. has violated the UN Security Council Resolution 2231 and is backed by the other permanent members of the Security Council on this matter. And the U.S. basically finds itself isolated. So this is an opportunity for President Rouhani to shore up international support, highlight U.S.'s isolation, and push for what was the main thrust of his talk today, which was to encourage the U.S. to come back to the table and make a U-turn and re-adopt the Iran nuclear deal.
President Rouhani, at one point during his speech, Kaveh, said, without mentioning President Trump by name, he took aim at the United States and its policies, saying they're unlawful and the unilateral sanctions in themselves constitute a form of economic terrorism. What did he mean by that?
These are very, strong words that President Rouhani probably would have refrained from had President Trump not attacked Iran so vociferously. Iran finds itself today under, serious economic pressure imposed by the United States, and these will grow exponentially in the coming months as a result of the U.S.'s oil sanctions if they're successful. And so, these violate the basic economic human rights of Iranian people and are tantamount to economic terrorism. So conceptually speaking, President Rouhani, who tried to align himself with multilateralism and the basic values of the United Nations and globalism today, contrary to President Trump, feels quite righteous in attacking President Trump and his unwise policy that's fueling instability and the prospect for war and even other predicaments in the Middle East, broader Middle East, not just Iran.
Understood. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Kaveh Afrasiabi joining us from Boston.